Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mac. Joining me tonight is my good friend from Cavs Nation, Nikki Goel. How you doing, brother?
Been better. Been better.
Yeah, that's probably the best answer that either of us could give at this point. You guys already know the Cleveland Cavaliers took on the Boston Celtics in a game 5 in which, frankly, they had nothing to lose, in my opinion. They were already down Jarrett Allen. Donovan Mitchell missed his second straight, and now the cherry on top of the proverbial Sunday of sadness, Karis LeVert was unable to suit up as well. With that said, it felt like Boston thought that they were going to have an easy game on their hands tonight. Guess what? Newsflash, they did not. No, sir, no cakewalk here. Cleveland fought their asses off. I couldn't be more proud of these guys. The chips were down, and JB had them playing some of the most inspired basketball that we have seen all season long. That said, still resulted in an L, my friend. Sad to say that the Cavaliers season has been ended at the hands of the Boston Celtics by way of the dreaded gentleman's sweep. First thoughts that come into your head, first thing that pops into your mind, Nikki.
No, I mean nothing but proud. Nothing but proud. You were dealt a tough blow. There's never been a team in NBA history who wins a playoff series without their best player. It is hard to do, especially because you thought you found something. You found something in game 2. You come into the fourth quarter of game 3. That's when Mitchell felt his injury, and then that can take life out of you. We've seen this season throughout the season what happens when you lose Mitchell. Typically the Cavs fold, especially in the regular season whenever we lost Mitchell to those injuries. But I don't think the Cavs folded these last 2 games. I think they showed up, they showed out, guys stepped up. Heroes we expected, like Garland dropping 30 in game 4, and Mobley dropping what he dropped today. But then also unexpected heroes. You saw Max Strus hitting 5 threes in that game 4, and then you had today Marcus Morris, big ball Morris Sr., dropping what he did in a desperate attempt. It's cool to see. It's sad because it's good to see these things, even if they don't mean something in the record books and what going forward. But I think as an organization, you're proud, and there's a lot to build off here. There's a lot of good stuff here. There was some growth here. I even think through some of the bad, there was some good. But overall, obviously, it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't mad after game 4. And, just like game 4, I'm not really mad about tonight's outcome. I mean, we all kind of saw it coming, right? I mean, the addition of Karis LeVert to the injury report only added insult to the proverbial injury, right? And so you knew the Cavaliers, they were playing with house money. They really didn't have anything to lose. So they just went out there and they played and they showed a lot of heart. I got to give credit where it's due. I thought guys unexpected, like you said, stepped up. We didn't expect to get 25 points out of Marcus Morris on 10 of 13 from the field, including 5 of 6 from 3-point distance. And my God, that man, he was balling. He kept this Cavs team in it when they had no business being in it. Opposite Evan Mobley's 33 on 15 of 24. There's some real questions that this team is obviously going to have to answer heading into this offseason now. Now, with the season finally over, we can begin to look towards that. But for at least tonight's performance, I'm going to try and steer tonight's conversation away from the general offseason talk because we got all offseason, we got all summer long to do that. So what I'd like to do is just kind of focus on the here now, focus on the present, focus on what we just witnessed. So I'll start off here, man. As most people in this chat are indicating, Darius Garland was an offensive no-show, at least in the points production spot. 11 points in a closeout game against this dreaded Boston Celtics juggernaut of a team. You only get 11 and 9 assists from him on an awful 4 of 17 from the field, including 0 of 4 from 3-point distance. And, we saw him get packed by the likes of Al Horford on numerous drives to the paint. One of the things that people have been calling for DG to do for, I don't know, weeks, months since his return, attack the basket, get aggressive, try and will this team to victory. And when he tries it, what happens? he gets sent packing by a very old Al Horford. And that is no slight to Al Horford, who absolutely obliterated Cleveland in numerous regards today on his way to 22 points, 15 huge rebounds, by the way, and 5 assists on a very efficient 8 of 15, including 6 of 13 from the three-point line. Nikki, this man took 13 threes. He took 13 threes by himself. And we know this is a team that loves to shoot the three ball. They shot 42 and a half threes per contest during the regular season. They've kind of toned that down against this Cleveland team, but they did, as a team, take 43 tonight. But purely in reference to Darius Garland, what did you see from him tonight? Was this just the cherry on top of the season, like just to go out in that fashion the way that he did on a very tumultuous season that he's had, or did Boston do something in particular to just shut him down? I mean, we already referenced the Horford stuff, but what were you saying?
I think it's kind of funny. The two are a little bit connected. I think the way that Horford's shots were created were a result of the Cavs forcing guys like Tatum and Brown to be passers. I think we made a decision today that if we're going to go down, we're going to go down from Al Horford hitting threes. Unfortunately, killed us. You can't give him that many straight up in rhythm shots. And I actually think that this better strategy might have been to actually just allow Tatum and Brown to try to attack switches and then help at the rim. But that could have also led to wide open shots. You have to pick your poisons against the team. They hit the shots. We still made it competitive until the last few minutes. You could live with it. But at the end of the day, that's what we did. We said, Al Horford, you beat us. The Celtics made a similar decision. They said, Darius Garland, you beat us. They conceded Al Horford on a lot of switches. They gave DG Al Horford. And I think this is kind of like a summary a lot of times of Darius's struggles this year, where, over the last 2 years, through injuries, through shifting roles, through just being asked to do different things, sometime game to game and season to season. This to me is the result of not fully developing Darius's confidence as a scorer. Like, I think this was a moment today when you really needed him to get good shot after good shot against Al Horford. And you saw a journey in this game. The first half, Darius was clearly uncomfortable, not making great decisions with Horford, switched on him, tried to beat him to the rim a few times, rushed a few moves, passed too early, passed too late. Just a couple indecisive moments and forced moments. But then in the second half, you saw him get to the counters. You saw him force the drive to the rim and then hit him with a fake or a turnaround and get a good look or get a good shot. But he didn't catch enough rhythm and he wasn't able to produce enough out of it. And it came a little bit too late. And so you wonder if when teams do this, when teams take the ball out of Mitchell's hands or when Mitchell's gone and it's just Garland, does he have the confidence, the rhythm to go back into that primary option scoring role like we saw in 2022? I think, this is something that the Cavs need to look at. Like, with Mitchell, without Mitchell, you need DG to be able to flourish in moments like this. Like, if they concede Horford switch, that should be a good thing for us. So I think I don't have any issues. I mean, Chris makes a point here. Instead of the ISOs and high pick and roll, to give DJ more of a runaway to attack Horford. To be honest,
played a lot of drop coverage on him, though. That was
they did. They did. Like
Horford was dropping all the way back, asking, just literally begging DG to try and drive in and get something going from the mid range. And we just credit to Al Horford. I mean, yes, DG sucked tonight. He stunk it up in numerous regards. He could get nothing going. They stayed plastered to him whenever Horford wasn't the primary defender. But we got to give Al Horford a little bit of props here, because even when DG drove into the heart of the defense, attacking that drop coverage, Horford was right there. He didn't fall for any of the fancy ball handling that DG tried to bring to the table. And whenever he did get to the basket, they challenged every single shot that he had.
Right. So I think a big thing here is DG needs consistent reps moving forward to work on his in-between and mid-range game. I think he needs to get confident with that again. He needs to get a little bit more confident finishing at the rim. I mean, today he got hit in the face for like the 15th game in a row. He needs A lot of things when your jaw gets shattered, when you get hit in the face all the time, when you're just constantly getting doubled and facing bigs in the paint, that can mess with your confidence to finish at the rim. So I think Darius, a big focus needs to be his confidence and his scoring, his ability, his in between game. I want to see more mid range. I want to see more floaters. I just want to see more in rhythm shots as opposed to him indecisively or uncomfortably forcing certain things. Just so he can like know himself a little bit more. I think he's been relegated a little bit to like game manager duties over the last couple of years. I think he's been kind of like asked to not be the kind of scorer that he really can be in moments because it was better for other guys in certain lineups. But I think moving forward, the priority needs to be we need the best version of Darius Garland, and that version is a scorer.
I mean, I completely agree, 100% agree. Before I address that, I just have to address this comment. Jay Dias says, nah, I ain't giving him credit. No all-star PG should be locked down by Al on multiple occasions. Look, Jay, I love you, man. You're in here all the time, but I kind of disagree with this one. I think two things can be true. I think Al Horford played a hell of a game tonight, especially on the defensive end. They asked him to do a lot tonight, and he came through after having a series where he's kind of struggled from an offensive standpoint after coming off of back-to-back seasons in which he's dropped the three ball above 40%. And the Cavaliers, rightfully so, after him not making them pay for doing that and leaving him wide open, he did that tonight. The man attempted 13 shots and dropped 6 of them. He made them pay for leaving him open at points. And then on the defensive side of the ball, on DG, I got to give him credit because he kept his feet down. He didn't fall for pump fakes. And when DG did try and attack the drop coverage, he couldn't get anything going in the mid-range. And again, when he attacked the basket, he was right there to contest. And then he pulled down 15 rebounds. When you don't have the likes of Jarrett Allen out there, and when Evan Mobley is being pulled out onto the perimeter on many of these possessions to try and help or rotate, that's tough, man. So we do got to kind of give Al Horford some credit here. But to your point, Nikki, I do think like the shifting roles and the shifting mentality of, hey, am I the number one option? And am I supposed to be off the ball? What is my role here? I do think that plays a part, but at the same time, it's not like we haven't seen him do this before. It's not like we haven't seen him have a large game without Donovan out there. It's just been inconsistent as hell. And with the season that he's had, the injuries, people say don't use that as an excuse anymore. He's been back for months, but I still think it still played somewhat of a factor down the stretch of the season. And during this postseason, when Don clearly isn't 100%, but is giving it his all out there until he couldn't go anymore, Darius failed to turn back the clock to the 2021-22 version of himself. And by virtue of that, the Cavaliers just weren't able to get anything else going, especially already down Jarrett Allen. And then on top of that, a guy who had recently been stepping up in Caris LeVert, you missed him today, which forced other guys into some action. So the next guy I kind of want to talk about here is that of Marcus Morris, right? Moving into the offseason, because we know Morris was brought in, if I'm not mistaken, on just the rest of the season contract. Do you considering the Cavs' lack of wings, like bigger wings, do you consider bringing back Morris if you can, or do you look to try and are you sold on him moving forward, or do you want to kind of look elsewhere?
To be honest, we don't know anything. I think at this point, we can't really say whether you're going to adjust the 3rd, 4th, 8th, 9th. We go down up the roster. You don't really make any decisions until you know what's happening with Donovan Mitchell. To be honest, I think this series showed us the value of Evan Mobley at the 5 with a suitable 4 who can shoot and add physicality next to him. I think the ideal scenario is to add a little bit more size on the wing or another 4 who can shoot that can play with Mobley more often. Maybe somebody's a little bit younger and athletic. I think ideally you make an upgrade in the starting lineup for that role as opposed to relying on Morris for an entire season for that. And Morris is, he might be looking for a new contract. He might be looking for like a price that we can't match. So it's really uncertain. I think the bigger thing with Morris is not necessarily him, but finding that role, that grit, that experience, and that size, and maybe some younger legs that can carry through an entire season, find an upgrade in that position. I think the Cavs just have to take some hard looks in general with the roster, because there's a world where you can argue minor tweaks. There's a world where you can argue major changes. At the end of the day, it all kind of just depends what happens with Mitchell first. So, but in general, we learned something very valuable with Marcus Morris in that how you can play around Evan Mobley at the 5 and what kind of shooting and grit and size you need to put around him.
Yeah, I think that it does start with Mitchell, and that sucks, right? Without knowing the building block that is him, or the
Yeah.
domino rather that is him, it's tough to really go into this offseason and say, you know what, we're going to address this, this, and that. We know that they have the 20th overall pick in the draft, and I'm hoping they keep that pick rather than trading it away. But I would understand that rationale as well if you get Mitchell to sign on the dotted line and you have to move a piece of the core to bring in somebody who fits better. But again, we got all off season, all summer to talk about that. I'm
Yeah.
not going to dive deep into it, but I did want to get your thoughts on that. Just want to hop back into this chat over here. Mike B says, "Say fam, tough loss tonight." Mike B, if you are by any chance Mike Bauman, I just have to say what's up. I don't know if I've seen you in here before, but appreciate it. Definitely a tough loss tonight, though. Definitely something that it didn't leave a sour taste in my mouth. I thought these guys played very, very well. Yes, it is Mike. Okay. Good to see you,
What up,
man.
Mike?
Yeah, it's my Uncle Mike.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that said, it was definitely a performance that left me feeling good, right? If you're going to lose, that's the
What
way
up,
to go
swinging?
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that's the way that you're going to lose, go out swinging. And I thought without their like two best players, right? I'm starting to feel like Jarrett Allen has a real claim to that question. If you don't consider him the second best player on this team, he is definitely one of the three best players, even in my opinion, over Evan Mobley at points. I think he showed that this year. Evan Mobley, though, definitely had a really, really solid game tonight. That's the next guy I kind of want to talk here about a little bit. Mobley playing at the center position.
Yeah.
Mobley manning that 5 spot is something that people have been clamoring for a very, very long time. You even during the Magic series at certain points when Jarrett Allen left, you did say that small ball could favor them at certain points, and you see the difference in how this man is utilized whenever he is out there at that 5, whether he's driving and kicking out to the likes of a Sam Merrill. We saw that a little bit tonight, or Max Strus at certain points. But talk to me a little bit about Mobley's overall outlook at that 5 position. Over these last couple of games, have you, one, felt like Mobley is better suited at the 5? And two, do you feel like the Cavs should be trending in that direction?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that besides figuring out what to do with Mitchell, that is the biggest question this offseason for Kobe Altman. Um, yeah, I think it reminds me a lot what happened in December 15th and how the injuries that happened to Garland and Mobley, if it wasn't for those injuries, we would never have learned certain things about our roster. We wouldn't have learned that, the power of Sam Merrill or the potential of Craig Porter Jr. or the fit of Dean Wade and what Donovan Mitchell with a lot of shooting can look like, right? We wouldn't have learned that without those injuries. And I think kind of thing ironically happened here too with the Jarrett Allen injury. We may not have seen a full update on who Evan Mobley is now. And we kind of do. I do think we now have a good idea of what this guy can be. It is crazy because Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley together, the idea of it and all the benefits that come with it, it there is a world where Evan Mobley at the 5 may outweigh those benefits. There is a world where if you allow him to truly become the player that he can be, to give him all the space and role that he can be, and you surround him with another 4 who can be switchable, but that doesn't hurt you offensively and allows Mobley to continue to get the attention of a 5 and the touches of a 5 and the switches of a 5, then yeah, that's something that the Cavs should definitely explore. I do think it's opportunity based. I do think like you don't move off of Allen unless it's a deal that makes sense. You don't move off of Allen unless it's like a fit that takes you to that next level. But we have to embrace the silver lining here. As tough as this loss was, as unfortunate as this ending to the season was, Evan Mobley is real. Like this guy has proven it. He's proven that he's going to be a fundamental part of this franchise moving forward. And when you find the fundamental pieces, you really have to build around them. A lot of things can go into this now. How you surround him, what you do with Allen, even potential coaching changes. All of that will change the course of Evan Mobley's career, just like how the first decisions you made with the players that you surrounded him and the coaches that you gave him started his career. So I hate to say this, it is still connected to Mitchell. It is still connected to the general direction that we need to go to. And like, how are we going to play? What's the philosophy? What's the coaching going to be like? What's the personnel to carry out that philosophy going to look like? So unfortunately, Mobley is still going to be more of a byproduct than a focus and how to build around, I think, as of right now. But yeah, I think basically to put it in case, anything can happen right now. And it's exciting in a way because there's a world where we could be better off without Jarrett Allen. But then at the same time, it's, obviously it's scary because, losing talent that has been so valuable to you is hard. So, yeah, I really don't know. I really don't know. The Cavs, if anything, they have options, and we just got to hope they don't get they don't get drowned by all the options that they have this summer.
Yeah, I mean, assuming Kobe Altman isn't let go, it should be a busy offseason for him. There's a lot of different question marks, and it does start with Donovan Mitchell, and then, every other domino that must fall will happen after that once a decision has been made. Or if the Cavs, if they get a non-committal from Donovan Mitchell, which is still very much a possibility heading into this offseason due to the fact that his player option isn't until 2025, 26, until that offseason. He could very much still be on the roster without a full commitment heading into next season. So there's just so much to sit here and wait and see what ends up happening. I do agree that there's a lot of different routes that they could take here. And the sentiments that you echoed in reference to Jarrett Allen, it's essentially the same way. And I hate to admit this, but I got to keep it 100. It's the same way I feel about Darius Garland right now. Love Darius. He has given us some very fun times here, especially over the course of the wonderful upstart 2021-22 season where nobody expected the Cavs to do much of anything. There were zero expectations, and they, for the better part of the season, overcame a lot, right? And then it ended in dramatic fashion, right, in the playing games. But Darius Garland, if Donovan Mitchell commits and signs on the dotted line, or if he tells you, hey, I'm here for the long haul, maybe even start looking at moving him if you have to. Now, I'm not saying that's what they should do, nor am I saying that they should do that same thing with Jarrett Allen. But if a deal comes across the table that makes the team better, that includes either of those two, assuming you get Donovan Mitchell back in town, I have made my peace with it. Right.
Yeah.
I very, very appreciative of everything that these guys have brought to the table, but I am not expecting this team to look the same going into the 2024-25 season. The next thing that I have to address here, as Reaper 23 asked down here, any news on JB's status on the team? You guys know I'm not connected to the team as far as I'm aware. Nikki isn't either, but maybe that's news to me. JB's future. Heading into this series, I had resigned myself to the idea, the belief that if JB did not get this team to the Eastern Conference Finals, it's over. It's curtains. Didn't we lose Donovan for the rest, for the last two games? We lose Jarrett Allen for the last 8 now, if I'm not mistaken, including the Orlando series. And Karis LeVert was out tonight. Yet he has these guys playing pretty damn good basketball despite all these injuries.
Yeah.
Has your opinion wavered at all in regards to JB? Are you still of the belief that JB is gone, no matter what? Or is there a world in which you could see JB returning despite the Cavs losing in 5 games?
I would say this. I think before I even comment on the future of JB, I just got to say I'm proud of the guy.
Right.
I think easily one of the most scrutinized coaches in the NBA. And, I think he definitely failed in some aspects of trying to maximize talent, but he really over delivered on expectations when things got hard. He kept us in the season back in December. He got us through Orlando in responses that we needed. He put, honestly, a great game plan against Boston. Like, Boston looked beatable. And, this is a players' league. Like, this isn't like the NFL. This isn't like a league where the coaching it changes everything so dramatically that people think. you need your best player to win in the playoffs. Like that is just how this works. So, but JB, all in all, proud of him. Proud of him. I think he did grow in a lot of ways. I think a lot of
Yep.
things that people talk about how he struggles, I think he actually did make strides. But these things are bigger. These things are just kind of bigger than individuals. They're definitely bigger than coaches. I would say Vogel is relatively blameless for what happened in Phoenix this year, but I understand the franchise's move to move on. So it's like, I do think that, and to be honest with you, JB actually did kind of hit the mark here. I think the expectations going in the year was that you needed to get out of the first round. And according to Chris Fedor, you needed a competitive second round series. The circumstances of that second round were pretty tough this year. But overall, JB actually did put forward as the best possible game plan that he could. He maximized a lot of this talent. I do think, though, I don't want to do this again, but it really depends on what happens with Mitchell and what kind of future that looks like in the new philosophy that we go to. My expectation is that we move in a new direction. I do believe that we need. I do think there were some like over time effects of JB. Like I do think Mobley's development could have been different. I think Garland's confidence could have been different. I think guys missing shots in the playoffs, while it's not a coach's fault, I do think there's a reason why on certain teams, certain guys do somehow show out in the playoffs. So I think confidence and building habits is part of coaching. I'm not going to put it on JB, but I would totally understand that the Cavs move in a direction with a coach who brings a new, like a shift, a philosophical difference that gets guys to play up to their potential offensively in the playoffs more often. So, I think overall, JB did everything he could do. He helped us through times in the season. He was almost let go in December if things didn't turn. But overall, I'd say the Cavs trusted him for the right reasons, and he actually pulled through in a lot of ways. But these things are bigger. These things are just bigger than one person. So we might be just approaching that time.
Yeah, I mean, I put out on social earlier, I think it was either earlier today or yesterday, that, I would not be upset necessarily if JB was brought back, considering the circumstances of this second round and not really being dealt a fair hand here in regards to the injury gods. And I would also not be upset if the team moved on. I kind of feel indifferent in many ways in regards to this, because I feel like, to your point, he hit certain benchmarks, right? He did make it out of the first round. They did end up making it a competitive series despite not having their best player and Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert at certain points. And I thought that he certainly excelled in certain areas and was deficient in others, right? The rotations have been a complaint all season long, but rotations are kind of hampered in the postseason when you don't really have your full complement of rotation players. So I want to urge people, if you walked away from these last two games pissed off at JB for his rotations, just cut the guy a little bit of slack. He was working with scraps towards the end of the bench, right? If you want to get on him about the Niang minutes, I get it. It is what it is. It's a tale old as time in regards to Niang and JB's affinity for him. But all things considered, I thought we saw some of the best coaching that we've seen all season long from him, despite what he was dealing with from an injury perspective. That said, again, I'm okay either way. If you end up bringing JB back, okay, you have to retool some things. And that is going to be up to Kobe Altman, or if Kobe Altman is let go, whoever takes over for him. If you let go of JB, you have to bring in an offensive mind. That is my belief. You have to bring in somebody who specializes in the offensive side of basketball. JB, we know, is bread and butters on the defensive side. We saw the Cavaliers' defensive rating go up damn near every single season, and I know that does kind of coincide with the drafting of Evan Mobley throughout this tenure, but still, coaching does matter in that regard. Defensive scheme matters in that regard. But I think it's time. If you're going to make a switch, if you end up moving on from JB, please prioritize somebody who maximizes this group offensively. I think that is something that could go leaps and bounds. But before we move forward tonight, if you are new to the channel, make sure that you consider subscribing so that you don't miss out on Cavaliers content. I try and drop it regularly. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure to smash that for me. And if you want to support the podcast in a small but helpful way, please consider becoming a paid member on Patreon. It helps folks. That said, man, hell of a performance from this team tonight. I expect some changes to be made, but as you continue to say here, this is all really going to fall down to the Donovan Mitchell domino. That's what
Yeah.
I'm going to call it.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm starting to feel though, like after watching this team play, I just
Yeah.
don't know how Don says that he wants to move on. Like, sure, certainly it could happen. It's definitely a very real possibility, but
Right.
I just don't see it happening. Do you?
I am I think this kind of connects to the final point I want to make on JB and Kobe and all this. JDS, you actually made a good reference about Dan Gilbert tweeting about the team after the game. I don't think the Cavs are where the fans are. I think the Cavs saw great effort from their team. I think they saw a lot of positives. Like, for example, on Darius Garland, Darius had a bad season, and I can understand why they'll explore a Darius Garland trade. But to be quite honest with you, I think Darius is just going to stay. I think they're going to want see what happens with the new offensive approach with him, see if he can get his confidence back. Donovan wants to play with Darius. Darius is like probably his favorite teammate on the team. Like a big reason why Donovan is here or enjoying being here is because of Darius. I don't think you sell low on Darius. I think you build his confidence back up. You really see the potential he has in a different identity. And then you make a decision maybe later at the midpoint of the season or later. But you stand pat with Darius. I think you stand pat with Kobe. Like Donovan Mitchell is here because of Kobe Altman. Like, I understand that, like, maybe this time with JB has perhaps run its course, but 3 years ago, you were a 22-win team. Like, Kobe Altman has brought the best number one option in Cavaliers history outside of LeBron James to this team and got us out of the rebuild. So I would say overall, the Cavs are a little bit more optimistic than the fan base. And I think there still will be aggressive changes. Like, I think if there's a new coach, that's a pretty aggressive change. If you sign Mitchell and extend some guys or not extend other guys, that's going to lead to some changes in the roster. There'll probably be way more dramatic changes this year. But all in all, I think the Cavs are actually positive. I think they're actually pretty positive, and I think they want to build on this as opposed to completely reworking the team. You made a point about the bringing somebody who offensively minded, and I think what we need to specifically look at, there's somebody here, Reaper, you said Vogel's available, or if so, like JJ Redick is available. A lot of these guys people are talking about are available. I think no matter what you do, you need to find a coach who has a proven track record of elevating guys' offensive confidence in the playoffs. You need to find somebody who like clearly gets guys shooting more confidently, playing more confidently, somebody who has a track record of a better playoff translation for the regular season offensively. That's a very specific thing to look for. Going for somebody like a JJ Redick who doesn't really have that experience could be tough. Vogel has that experience, but offensively, maybe it's not like, I wouldn't say it's like his trademark
I
ability.
still consider Vogel very much a defensive mind.
Yeah. So it could be lateral then if you move to Vogel. So I think you need to do some research this summer, see what happens. There's going to be a lot of movement. We're in for a historic offseason. These playoffs have been weird with the injuries and the smaller market teams kind of rising. But that means when all these stars and bigger market teams are losing, the amount of aggression that's going to happen this offseason is going to be a lot. Like LeBron can end up anywhere. The Cavs can make huge changes. There's going to be coaching changes that need to be made. The Suns need a new coach. The Lakers need a new coach. Depending on what happens with the Wolves, if they blow this 2-0 lead, there could be changes. Like there's just so many changes that could be coming this off. Imagine the Celtics lose again this year. Like huge changes could be happening. You know what I mean? So I think the Cavs sort of like figure out in-house what they have and then go out and see what's available in the market. But yeah, I think overall the team's in a good spot, honestly. And I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic about this. And Reaper just said Mike D'Antoni. I couldn't really agree more. I think D'Antoni would actually be a very interesting fit and a guy who has a proven track record to raising a team's offensive ceiling.
We know that if you went out and you got D'Antoni, the Cavaliers would be getting up a lot more shots. We know that much. That man loves to go out there and run the floor, get that shot up very quick within the possession as well. Now, I've been dying to ask this question just based on this comment by Mercati. You know it's coming. Isaac Anthony Bennett Okoro.
Yeah.
Isaac has had a very, very poor postseason showing. I don't know. Like, I just have to get your opinion on this because part of me feels that JB has failed to maximize Okoro and what he thrives at. And another part of me just feels like Okoro may not be it. I'm kind of in a middle ground in regards to that. Now,
Yeah.
why that sucks is because we no longer really have the time to sort that question out. Yes, the man is entering restricted free agency, so if he doesn't really get a huge offer, the Cavs could toy around with the idea of re-signing him, giving him some type of offer sheet or whatnot, or maybe he toys around with the idea of playing on a 1-year deal in Cleveland. What are your thoughts on Isaac moving forward? What did you see from him this playoffs, and how do you feel about his prospects of remaining in Cleveland past this season?
Yeah, I think Okoro is kind of like symbolizes stuff. He like symbolizes the general lack of confidence in our shooters. I think he kind of symbolizes hesitation and just like a lack of habits for off-ball movement. I think there's just like I just think like you're right. I think JB could have done a better job finding better roles for him on the offense. I was never really sold by Okoro this year just because while each year his 3-point percentage has gone up
Low
and he's
volume.
shown strides, his issue has always been volume. Like
Yep.
to be an effective shooter is you have to be shooting. Like you have to like if you're in a series and the defense wants you to shoot more than you want to shoot, that's a problem. You know what I mean? Like that's the scale that Okoro has to tip, and he hasn't yet. It's very unfortunate because on both sides, one, keeping him, you have a little bit less confidence, and then even working him in a deal, you have a little bit less confidence in terms of the value you get from him and everything. I think he is a restricted free agent. My guess is the Cavs sign him and then maybe look at a trade or something. But yeah, overall, I would say pretty disappointing, especially for a contract year for him.
Yeah.
You expect a little bit more aggression to take the shots, and yeah, I just think I just think we're not going to say that again, but yeah, it's Okoro is going to be another domino for sure.
Yeah, I saw you getting ready to mention Donovan again, but I completely understand. It does. This shit always leads back to Donovan. I got to say, you guys know, if you've been listening to this podcast for any number of time or any length of time, rather, I'm a huge Isaac Okoro fan. I'm a
Mhm.
huge fan of the kid, and I feel qualified to say that in my 30s now. But with that being the case, even though he's coming off a season in which he shot 39.1% from 3-point distance, which is a career high from him, as Nikki said, volume is still very much a concern for him. Just 3.1 attempts this season. That's not even his career high. 3.2 attempts his rookie season. That was his career high. And we know how poorly he shot in year one. And we know the defenses are still not really prioritizing him as an offensive threat from beyond the arc. They will leave him open all the live long day. Boston started the series off by doing that, and they continued to do that as the season ran its course. And he didn't often make them pay for it. Yes, he had a pretty good game one in which he did. I believe he was 3 of 8 from 3-point distance in that contest. But
Yeah.
moving forward, it's been up and down with him. And the confidence to not pull the trigger, if I'm not mistaken, there had been possessions during the course of the season where he was hesitant to pull up given the space, whether
Yeah.
he would either move the ball or pump fake and drive. That's
Yeah.
what he loves to do. That's his go-to. And, that's the book on Isaac right now. I think some of
Yeah.
that is on JB to instill that confidence in him. I think some of that is on JB to better utilize his strengths, which we know he loves to get out in transition. But as Tune In Sports One says down here, becomes a liability.
Yeah.
Huge fan of Isaac Okoro, the person. Still believe that he has potential to become a 3-and-D wing out there, but I have to address the elephant in the room. He may not be it in Cleveland. I
Yeah.
do see a world in which he's brought back on a short term, maybe smaller deal from a monetary standpoint, but he cost himself a lot, and I mean a lot of money this postseason, because I was honestly, Nikki, I was feeling with the regular season that he had, because this is a
I
career
know.
year for him, easily
Yeah.
career year during the regular season.
Yeah.
I felt that if he had continued that same level of production, that he would have gotten a sizable raise. And
Yeah.
some team may throw money his way thinking that, hey, maybe we can unlock this guy. But I think that is definitely waned. I think the interest in him, the trade value, if you go that route, assuming Donovan Mitchell signs off on whatever
Mhm.
it is moving forward, that
Mhm.
Isaac has lost a lot, man. Not only in terms of monetary, but from a trade value standpoint. And while I do believe that the Cavaliers are in a good position, very much like you do, it sucks to see Okoro go out there and just be a no-show. I mean,
Yeah.
you could tell with the minutes. It just sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as his shot volume went down, JB realized maybe a little bit too late, but again, I mean, you didn't have Dean Wade. Like, you couldn't throw, like, even like people complain about the Niang minutes. If we could put Wade out there for another 10 minutes, we would. The dude's knee has multiple tears in it. Um, I the I'll give you a little bit of optimism for Okoro, and I like how you said it.
Thank you.
You said it well. You said that Cleveland may not be it for Okoro. And that's the whole point. Like, certain guys just may not flourish in certain situations. Look what Brunson was in Dallas versus where he is now. The perfect example I have here is Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks, laughing stock last season, completely an offensive liability last season, gets paid to go to Houston. And he actually has a great year in Houston. He's actually like a fundamental part of that team. He improved offensively. He found a new confidence there. I actually think like that could be a situation where Okoro needs to find a place where he can like become his own a little bit. For the Cavs standpoint, Okoro reminds me a little bit of DG. Similar issue, just opposite. The Cavs in general lack floor balance. Their best scorers are their worst defenders and vice versa. And you saw a little bit of progress this series with Mobley becoming a better scorer. And Garland had moments on defense where he really held his own, even though he's getting attacked every drive. The Cavs' mission this offseason should be to get more floor balance. Can you put out lineups that have a little bit more two-way help, especially if you decide to play small with Mobley more often? You're going to need better point of attack defenders on the wing. You're going to need a little bit more size out there. You're going to need a 4 and a 3 that's a little bit more adaptable. I thought Strus was great this year, but overall, between Strus, LeVert, and Okoro, you're still a little bit undersized. So I think the Cavs just need to achieve some floor balance this summer. Try to find a way to really counteract having 2 6'1" guards. Maybe that's where the DG trade rumors start to come in, because changing one of those 6'1" guards to a more formidable defender could be helpful as well. But I still think that you take the potential and the growth and the chemistry with Mitchell over that. So, but yeah, that's a big thing for the Cavs. If you're not able to contribute to floor balance, you maybe move away from that direction and you move toward options that do.
Yeah, I mean, there are a huge contingent, or there rather is a large contingent of fans among this fan base that believe that moving Donovan Mitchell over to the point guard position and moving DG for a bigger 3, right? A more well-balanced 3 and D wing out there that can really help you balance the floor, as you said. If you're not going to go that route, if you stay the course with this core, which I'm okay with, I do believe in the abilities of this core if you surround them with the right talent around the off the bench and some of the role players. But if you don't do that, one of the ways that you can accomplish this is in the draft. I think at pick 20, one of the guys, well, actually a couple of guys they should be looking at, Tristan da Silva. I think he would definitely help balance the floor in that regard. He's not an explosive athlete, but he can space the floor, and he is a pretty good team defender. He does a couple of things very, very well. If they don't want to go that route, they could look at somebody like a Jalen Tyson. Got some content dropping on him tomorrow, but I'm just saying all this to say, if they don't go the route of a huge trade of one of the core pieces, I do think that they need to look towards the draft, because I don't think a big upgrade in regards to floor balance is going to be coming via on the margins, like as an addition in free agency. You just don't have the cap space to do it. You don't have the assets to do it. So it's either going to be one of those 2 avenues. You're going to move a key piece of the core 4 that will bring you a substantial upgrade at that 3 or 4 position, or at least more depth and maybe some draft capital moving forward, or you go the route of the draft. In my opinion, if I have to talk about it now, it's just the 20th pick. I'm using that pick and I'm taking one of these guys. Jalen Tyson, Tristan da Silva, Tyler Smith. There's a couple of names out there that that really, really intrigue me, that you guys will see me drop some videos on over these next couple of days now that we know the season's over. But that's what I'm doing. We'll get into that in depth, I'm sure, over the course of the offseason. But there's a ton of options here for a Cavs team that seemingly on the surface doesn't have a lot of options in terms of assets and draft capital and cap space rather.
For sure.
But again, as you've said like 10 times tonight, but it is a true answer. It's Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell is the person that controls and wields so much power in regards to the Cavs' future, or for at least this upcoming season.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree 100%. You wouldn't, I have a question for you, Mac.
Sure,
You get
sure.
that 20th pick comes up. Cavs are
Mhm.
on the board. The Lakers made their pick. The Sixers made their pick. The Heat made their pick. Bronny James is still on the
Oh.
board. What are you doing?
Nikki, I got to be honest with you, man.
Go for it.
I'm not taking him with the 20th pick because yes, I understand. I understand the ramifications of that, but it's still a huge uncertainty. Drafting Bronny does not guarantee anything, in my opinion. Yes, LeBron James, it's been very well documented that he has said he wants to play wherever his son is getting drafted. And I think that there is a world in which that happens. But man, I would just be so hesitant to use a very a pick in a draft that is not maybe necessarily star laden, but a draft that is very, very depth laden. Like this is a pick that could yield you a day one contributor. I do not know if I'd want to spend that on Bronny, because it would come with the expectation in our minds that, hey, we just drafted your son, so you better get your ass over here, right? I mean, we just drafted your son, plop right in front of you, get your ass over here, suit up for the Cavs, end your career in Cleveland, which would be awesome, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think I would do it with the 20th pick. If there's a world in which they can get him on in the second round, or they can trade back into the latter stages of the first round, if teams are starting to feel the pressure of doing that, you do it. But I just don't think I can, man. I understand it, and there's a valid reason why it should be an option that's on the table. But I know that you're not supposed to do this because it's tampering, right?
Yeah.
But they got to have some type of verbal handshake, non-agreement behind closed doors with LeBron before I even consider that shit. It's like, okay, because you don't know, it could end up being a waste. But
For
assuming
sure.
since you brought the question up, I do have to turn it back to you. Well, how are you feeling in regards to that?
Well, I will say this. I love that you've done your homework on the draft class and you found guys who can actually come in and help the Cavs day one. That's huge. And that's honestly the way that we've been operating, the way that Kobe's operated last year. He's drafting Emoni Bates at a pretty good value, and then afterwards getting Craig Porter Jr. after the draft, undrafted, right? I believe that we're going to be responsible. Don't get me wrong. But I also believe that while I'm happy overall about the Cavs' effort this year, and while I'm positive looking forward to the Cavs in 2025, I do say that part of my optimism for signing Donovan Mitchell extending him rather, is that we are going to enter a new window. We are entering a win now window. Even though we're young, even though there's going to be transitional changes and everything, I think the expectation of extending Donovan Mitchell and keeping him in the long run is going to come down to winning. I think it's going to become conference finals or busts after this year.
That's fair.
And if a move helps bring you to a better chance of winning, which I believe in the Eastern Conference with the talent that we have, if you were to add, let's say, a LeBron James, you're going to have to give things up. Maybe this is where the Darius Garland or the Jarrett Allen trade rumors really come up. But all in all, if you're the Cavs, I think you have to consider it. But you're right. There's no guarantees, and there's probably more responsible, mature decisions to make out of this. I'm not saying we're reliant on it. I don't think that's the only way to a championship is to get LeBron. But I do think the mindset has to be more aggressive this offseason.
I think that what we can say about Kobe Altman is that, like, he made his huge swing whenever he acquired Donovan, right? You sacrificed Lauri Markkanen, who let's just get this out of the way, because I see people suggest this shit all the time. Yes, Lauri Markkanen has been phenomenal for Utah, but look, folks, he was not going to be able to do that in Cleveland. They were not
going to pay him the max. Come on now.
We weren't going to pay him, and he wasn't going to get the touches. People want
Right.
Evan Mobley to develop. He was never going to get the touches that he needed to develop if Lauri Markkanen stayed for one. And Lauri Markkanen wasn't going to get the touches he needed to break out like he has in Utah. And then obviously you got the Sexton stuff. He was included. And then
Yeah.
I was sad to relinquish Ochai Agbaji in that draft after just selecting him, because I did legitimately feel like you can clearly see a need for his type of archetype here now.
For sure.
But yeah, I think that Kobe has not been shy about being selectively aggressive. People's biggest complaint with him has been at the deadlines, back-to-back deadlines in which you have not really brought in a needle mover at all. You have relied upon the buyout market. We know Danny Green was a shell of himself coming off an injury. And then Marcus Morris was actually a pretty solid addition. Probably should have been given more run at certain points down the stretch. But at the end of the day, I do, as you're suggesting, I do feel that he will approach this offseason from an aggressive standpoint, because not only for the fact that the Cavs want to improve upon this season, which can still be viewed as an improvement, but he might be, not even might, he'll be on the block, right? And not necessarily the trade block, but his head could be he could be next on the chopping block, on the proverbial chopping block. So he's going to be working his ass off to try and improve this team however that he can. And if you can get LeBron back, then hell yeah, I'll entertain trades for Jarrett Allen. I'll entertain trades for Darius Garland. As long as it means that you're keeping Donovan Mitchell and you got LeBron on the roster and you build around Don. You don't build around LeBron, obviously.
For sure.
Or Mobley. But I do have to acknowledge, since you brought it up, and it is definitely it's a chance. And I think it's a larger chance than people would be willing to admit. Yeah. We saw him in Rock and Mortgage Fieldhouse at game 4. And that was awesome. And then that's only going to continue to add to the proverbial fire here, right? And so I would welcome him home with open arms. Definitely. But I'm not going to go out and spend that draft pick on him. So I'll just reiterate that. I'm not doing it.
All right. That's fair. That's fair. And overall, I think we just actually agree. I actually just think, like, I trust the Cavs. I think they've just been, in the last few years, it's been the first time I've ever noticed this franchise being functional and responsible without LeBron. Like, I've seen us just make savvy moves, overall very justified decisions. It's easy to look back and say Kobe Altman is trash, or complain about a draft pick, or complain about a trade, or say we should have traded Jarrett Allen instead of Lauri Markkanen. It's like, bro, nobody in their right mind would have traded Jarrett Allen after his All-Star year, right? It's so you have to look at the process. You have to look at the decisions he's making with what he knows in the moment. And I feel like he's actually made, like, good decisions. I trust him to make the right ones this offseason. His priority is to keep Donovan, which means to keep Donovan, we're going to go for championships. That's what this is now. This is now a team that is entering a window where we're prepared to go into luxury tax. We are prepared to extend Mitchell and compete with Mitchell for years, right? We are looking for a championship now moving forward. And I think Kobe Altman has each time, he never said this was a championship or bust team in these last 2 years since we had Donovan. The first year was developmental. I agree. I think in the first year, maybe he should have made a move at the trade deadline. But this year, I don't blame him. This year, the market for the trade deadline wasn't very good. The Lakers, for example, they were desperate and needed a change. They didn't do anything, right? A lot of teams did not do a whole lot at the trade deadline. Phoenix went all out for Royce O'Neal, but they paid a price that not many people are going to pay.
That's the thing. Like, Cleveland, there were pieces out there that we all would have loved to have had. Royce O'Neal was one of them, but we just didn't have the requisite assets to beat out some of the offers that some of these guys made.
Yeah, and I don't think a trade deadline move was changing the outcome of this season. Like, we made a decent run. We got out of the first round. By the way, can I just say, the Orlando series, people are talking about how we ducked in the Charlotte game to try to face Orlando. Orlando this year was better than the Knicks last year. We beat a team that was better than the year before. The Cavs improved, okay? We pushed the Celtics. I know people are going to look at the final box scores and the series 4-1 and think they know what they're talking about. But if you watch these games, when healthy, when hitting on cylinders, we were pushing the complete title favorites, okay? So I think if something bounces one way or the other, if one guy doesn't get hurt here and there, things can look different. So overall, The Cavs should be proud of the progress. I think the process has been good. We made good changes. We brought in guys who made sense, guys who wanted to play together, guys who wanted to be in Cleveland. Like, that's important. And so I think I trust the now that this is shifting, now that we are moving into a world where it's not just integrating this guy, add space and see how this works. Now it's about championships. Now it's about how do we win with Donovan. And I think now I expect an aggressive Kobe Altman, because so far he's been responsible, but now it's time to be aggressive.
I think that's the only way you can go if you're Kobe, or you're going to be fired. I mean, it's really
right. No, that's true. It's true.
It's really as simple as that. There's a lot of different changes that could be made. I'm hoping that Kobe Altman errs on the more aggressive side of things. But again, that the largest domino is yet to fall. As we continue to say here, Donovan Mitchell will control a lot of our destiny, at least in the short time, right? In the meantime, right now, before we can even really consider making any of these ancillary moves. That said, man, I mean, it's a good way to cap off the season to have a conversation like this. I started off the episode by saying I wasn't upset about this loss in this series, because I do feel like the Cavaliers did ultimately take a step forward this year after losing in very, very ugly fashion to the New York Knicks. Man, I hate those guys last season. But I don't know if I am ready to start this whole offseason talk, man. I'm not at that point. I really want to dive deep into it, but I'm just not there yet.
All good. Let's enjoy this, man. Let's just enjoy this. I have two questions for you. One,
Sure.
What was your favorite moment from the Cavs season this year?
Favorite moment, honestly, is, I mean, it's probably cliche because everybody's going to say it, was the game winner, right? The Max Strus game winner, where that game was basically out of hand and against a team that Cleveland probably had no business beating in that game. They ended up winning it. Craig Porter Jr., one that that's probably underrated this season. If everybody remembers, I believe it was a Philadelphia game in which Craig Porter Jr. came in down the stretch and really, really excelled. He did it against Denver as well. There were just too many moments from this season to count, man, that really just stuck in my head. But those are definitely three of them. Craig Porter Jr.'s games against Philadelphia, his games against Denver, and then the Max Strus game winner. Those are definitely some fun times.
Yeah. Yeah,
What about
Strus
you?
buzzer beater was cold. Yeah. I love that you brought up Craig Porter Jr. I think I was super high on Craig when I heard we were signing him. I actually watched him a lot at Wichita. Led his team in every single statistical category. I know his agent Ryan. I actually was talking to Ryan, and he told me before Woj even told people that Craig was extending for 4 seasons. It was just so crazy to see an undrafted player become that. Craig is great.
Underrated,
Craig is like a gold mine. Like, it's like you have a player here who clearly understands the game, is crafty, has a sustainable style of play, likes to get people involved, has a ceiling as a scorer too. I think he just has to improve the outside shot, and he's going to be really, really good. Young, cost control player for the next 4 years. What an absolute gold mine and story. I'm hoping he really becomes that backup point guard for us moving forward.
I think he can. He showed a lot this season. He was an older prospect coming out undrafted out of Wichita State, but you could clearly tell in his evaluations and then in the summer league that this kid was ready, right? That he was ready to go, and that he could be a day one contributor on the right team. And I felt like there were opportunities this season for him to be able to do that. And JB just was non-committal on playing him at certain points. I think some of that was not wanting to burn out his two-way eligibility so quickly before they made a determination on whether or not they wanted to sign him for the rest of the season.
For sure.
I think there's a lot of different factors that played into that, but he showed me enough. There's definitely a bright future for him, and I do think he can solidify himself as the backup point guard of the future, which there's one other guy here who we have not talked about really at all this season because he's been out. He's just been gone. He's been injured the entire season. It hurts my soul because when they signed him, I thought that they were going to be able to get a really, really good player, and that's Jerome.
Yeah.
A lost season, essentially, for Jerome. Just have to ask your opinion on him because I don't think I've actually asked you this on the record. Did you feel like Ty could have been an impact player this year?
Which is crazy because every single time the Cavs have had an injury this season, they found something, right? Like when the Mobley and Garland injuries, we found people. When Allen gets hurt in the playoffs, you found a playoff Mobley. And Ty Jerome gets hurt for the whole freaking season, and you find
You could
Craig
have
Porter
dropped the
Jr.
F-bomb there. It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah,
Yeah, he gets
it's just
hurt the entire
crazy.
year.
It's crazy how just ironically, like, the Cavs get dealt a bottom 5 hand and JB becomes a top 5 coach, or a guy gets hurt and then somebody else unheard of steps up in a way that we could not have anticipated. It's just crazy how Ty Jerome is just another
Lucky to
example
Craig.
of something going completely wrong and then still giving us like a weird silver lining with Craig Porter Jr. So unfortunate. I think Ty was going to be great. He was great for the Warriors. Good shooter. Has like a little bit of a Ricky Rubio in terms of ability to play slow and play in control and in pace. It just would have been nice. It would have been
And
nice
he's
to have
bigger,
somebody
man.
like
He's a
that.
bigger guard out there.
Yeah, exactly. Like that. Imagine Ty Jerome and all those switches that DG had. If you were able to take DG out for 10 to 15 minutes and he's making things a little bit harder, it would have been nice. It would have been nice. Give us a different look with the second unit as well, which was a struggle, the bench scoring throughout the playoffs as well. So yeah, unfortunate, but like again, before it happened, people are gonna say Kobe Altman signed Ty Jerome. What the hell? It's like before his ankle exploded, it was a good idea. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's unlucky.
It was a solid addition for sure. That was one that I was actually really excited to see pan out, especially after the preseason. And then we only got to see him for 2 games and barely any minutes at that. And so that shit sucked. But I do feel like Craig Porter Jr. was a nice fill-in.
Yeah.
And moving forward, hopefully he's able to solidify himself within the rotation. Before we head out of here, one other player that we hadn't had the opportunity to really talk about during the postseason, because he was postseason. Well, he was ineligible for the postseason rather than that, is Emoni Bates.
Yeah.
The outlook on Emoni Bates moving forward, because I don't think I've actually gotten the opportunity to ask you about him on the record either. Did you see enough from Emoni, not only in the G League with the I was getting ready to say can charge, Jesus, with the Cleveland charge, and at the NBA level where he was played very sparingly? Did you see enough from him moving forward to consider bumping him into the rotation heading into the 2024-25 season?
I knew moving into the season he would not be ready. I think especially for a team that's trying to win, we're a pretty deep team. There's a lot of talent on this team. I didn't see a world where Emoni was going to take minutes away from Strus, LeVert, Wade, Okoro, all these guys. You just can't find minutes for somebody when you have that much talent at the position. But I do think Emoni fits into the culture. I think that his confidence building up in the G League is huge. I'm not sure even next year he's going to get those minutes. I think he's going to get called up in different parts of the regular season, especially when injuries happen and everything. We need to see physically. Tom K just said it. Physically, there needs to be some development. He needs to get stronger. I think defensively, he still has a lot to learn. Offensively, I think there's other ways he can impact the game other than shooting that I think he needs to learn. But having confidence is everything, and he has it, and he's developing it. So I think it's one of those things where, listen, we drafted this guy 53rd, second round. Like, take your time with this. Take your time with this. Just like Craig Porter, just like Sam Merrill. These are long-term potential fits that can like extend our window here. Let them grow on their own and call on them when you need or when those times come. But I don't think you go into this next season game planning for Emoni Bates. I think you make upgrades. You go get veterans. You make a step here. You take a big swing. And then let Emoni grow and then let that thing become more organic with him becoming a full-time Cavalier.
That's essentially how I feel. Love the kid's potential but I believe 20 years old now. I think he turned 20
Yeah.
this year. Showed a ton of confidence at the G League level where he was attempting 10 plus threes a night, where he was just given the ultimate green light. And we know, like, coming out of that draft, the biggest skill from him that was translatable was his off-ball shooting, right? His catch and shoot ability. And I still believe that is something that the Cavaliers could use as a potential asset in the next couple of seasons, considering how youthful he is.
Yeah.
But he's not at that point just yet, right? And
Yeah.
then it's also another thing, as you pointed out, the roster itself. There's just no place for him. There are no real minutes, no real opportunities for him to solidify himself. Not even in the back end of the rotation. And with how aggressive this team figures to be to shore up the bench and to to go out there and try and surround Donovan Mitchell with competent role players, not just the stars, but competent role players. I don't think there's really an area, an avenue to be able to do that. Ah, man, I love comments like this. I love comments like this because if you've been watching this, yes, if you've been watching the Cavs all season long, you just know that this is not the case. What the fuck is he talking about? The Cavs have nothing to lose based on this dismissal ass season. They better give Emoni substantial minutes next season. If you take yourself out of it, because you seem like a huge Emoni fan, and that's cool. I am too. We all believe in his potential. But if you take yourself out of it and you're being objective, you know that's not the case. You just know that's not the case. Love the kid, though. In regards to JB, though, because I just want to address one last comment down here from Jay Dias. Says, Shams said JB's job is in jeopardy. I think we all knew that, right? We all knew that was a possibility. I think we all knew that, but
new headline.
Yes. New headline. JB could be fired. Not clowning you, Jay. Just having a little fun at your expense. I definitely think that JB, his head could be on the chopping block, but we'll see. Mike says the Cavs season is over, but the postseason isn't. What are you going to do with the show until next year? Well, hopefully Nikki will be on here a ton more over the offseason as we continue to see these dominoes fall, starting with Donovan Mitchell. But over the course of the offseason, Mike, I'm probably going to be dropping a ton of draft content because that's really the only direction that I can head in at this point. I may come drop in here and there and discuss a little bit of what's going on with some of these other teams during the postseason. But this is honestly a time for me to take a little bit of a break. I've been putting in a lot of work in regards to the channel lately. That said, man, we've been here for a while, over an hour. Just want to give you the opportunity to plug anything that you're working on or anything you got going on over at Cavs Nation.
Before I do, guys, incredible season from you, Mac. What a grind. It's not easy. I was a beat reporter for the Cavs back in 2018, and I didn't even have time to make my own podcast. It's a lot of work. It's very hard. You grew a lot. You gained a lot of traction this year. You got a lot of people to know what you're about, and you spread a lot of optimism about the Cavs. And overall, I think it was a successful season for the Cavs despite their circumstances, and I think it was a very successful season for you. So congrats to you, Mac. I'm Nikki. I'm the director of content at Clutchpoints. You guys ever heard of us? We're mostly an NBA page, but we cover all sports. I was also the founder of Cavs Nation. If you go look on Facebook, we're the largest Cavs fan base on the internet. And I feel this is the first year I kind of like really took it upon myself to kind of get back into the Cavs Twitter community. That's how I met Mac. That's how we started recording content together. It's been a great season overall. Excited for next season. Follow me, follow Clutchpoints, follow Mac, support him on the Patreon. Keep this podcast alive and well and thriving, so this man can continue to thrive. And yeah, I'm excited for the offseason. I'm excited for next season. I think we are in store for something special. I really think that there was a lot of truth that we found this year. I think Donovan Mitchell is that guy. I think the Cavs have the pieces to make something really special with that guy. Let's go into this offseason and in this next season and just get ready to cook.
I couldn't agree more. Thanks for the shout out, man. Hopefully you hop on here when we have some big news to talk about. That said, as I always tell you guys, if you like to reach out to me, man, I fuck this up every single time. Nikki, you're no stranger to that, right? You've heard me do this a billion times, and I'm still messing it up. If you'd like to reach out to me, now you can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you'd like to be added to the It's Cavalier Discord chat, which I'm trying to get a little bit more active, checking the email for when people do this. Send rate the podcast wherever you listen, wherever you stream it at, and take a screenshot of said review or rating and email that to itscavalier53@gmail.com, and I will send you an invite personally. That said, go Cavs. It's been a good season. I just don't even want to close out the season, man, but I have to. Have a good night, y'all.